good evening, Mark. My condolences, first of all.
Thank you, and good evening to you. I mean, like you, I'm listening. I've just listened to the press conference, so it's difficult news to take on board. But I have to say, not entirely unexpected, sadly.
Let's work through some of what we've heard, that the debris discovered today in a debris field on the seabed was consistent with a catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. We've also had some detail too that the debris found was not within range of the Titanic, so it wasn't, as far as we can establish, not close to the Titanic wreckage at all. From your assessment of what you've been hearing, Mark, and your expertise as well, what are your deductions on this?
Well, I guess just to highlight that whilst I'm knowledgeable about extreme environments, the submarine environment we're talking about, I'm not a specialist. So, I can make some educated guesses as much as anybody else. You know, it, with a catastrophic failure of the hull, at least if there's any solace to be taken from this, it would have been instantaneous. If the wreckage or the debris rather is a distance from the Titanic, my feeling is the currents in that area are quite strong, so potentially the catastrophic failure would have happened on the descent before they got to the Titanic, and it would have fallen away from the ship itself due to the pull of the currents. But again, I'm not a specialist on these waters. Neither am I a specialist on submarine activities. But that would be my conclusions from that data.
And tell us about the Hamish Harding. I'd love to know more about him. We know he's a British explorer with a taste for adventure. Tell us about the man.
Well, I've known Hamish only for a relatively short time, for the last couple of years, and he has done some amazing sort of feats of exploration, including going into space. And my experience and my relationship with, he's an extremely humble and brilliant man in terms of his achievements. He's skilled across so many different fields. But I think, being an explorer exposes you inherently, by definition of that sort of passion, really, to risk. And he was a person that was happy to take on risks for the sake of exploration. And I think people like Hamish are important for our society because they are some of the people that push on the boundaries of knowledge, that literally explore. That comes with significant consequences at the time, but they're extremely valuable parts of our community because they're pushing boundaries constantly and expanding our knowledge of the natural world, the scientific world, and worlds outside of our own as well.
Yeah, quite often on these expeditions, research data was collected. Often scientists on board as well. It wasn't just about seeking a thrill, was it? It was about trying to understand, from first person point of view, really more about what lies underneath the water, more about what happens to wreckage like the Titanic. But I know that Hamish was involved in several missions that, included quite serious amounts of scientific research.
I think I'm probably stretching a little bit, but I suspect more is known about near space than it is of the oceans of our own planet. So now explorations of the ocean, the deep ocean, are incredibly important. I suspect there are innumerable species of animals and fish that we've yet to be discovered. And I think there is more known about near space than there is about our own oceans. And given the challenges we face with climate change, that knowledge about the oceans is going to become more and more important in terms of how we react to those changes that are facing us. So our exploration of that space, that underwater space, is incredibly important.
How do you think Hamish Harding would like to be remembered? How do you think he would like his memory to be cemented?
The one thing, and as I said, I've known Hamish for a relatively short period of time, but the last couple of years, I noticed in my brief exposure to his relationship with his sons that that was a very close one. So I would, from my point of view, like to remember him as being a good father, and also somebody who was able and willing and had the means by which and the intelligence by which to push boundaries, but who did that in a sort of humble and self-effacing manner, and also encouraged others to do the same and gave them the means by which to do so. But fundamental to my exposure to him would be as a good father and a good example to his sons.
And how are you feeling tonight, Mark?
Well, like everybody else, I guess I'm taking the news on board. There was a slender hope, which was a slender hope I was grasping, and it's difficult to take on board at the moment that actually that hope has disappeared. Um, so to be honest, it's going to take a little while to sink in, but I think we've lost somebody who was capable of pushing boundaries and that we're going to miss that individual. But it won't stop explorers from continuing to do the same and continuing to take risks. Nobody goes into these expeditions and these experiences expecting not to come back, but it is by definition part of the cost you take on board. So I think we've lost somebody who was pushing the boundaries of knowledge and adding to our sort of collective scientific knowledge of the world, and it's a sad day.